Hey, everybody. This is the Limbwalkers podcast. It's recorded live on the radio and on our YouTube channel. You can go to WJOB 1230 YouTube channel and you can see us, or you can go to anywhere, wherever you get your podcast. Just type in Limbwalkers, L-I-M-B, Walkers, and you'll be able to hear it. And this is a podcast. It's hard to really define it, other than it follows the journey of one Will Glaros and some of the things that he's learned in life and likes to dispense them to you. Now, we don't lecture. We kind of make fun. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting here. I don't know how many we've done. I don't know, 50 episodes or so. And every last one of them, I have to look down at this shoe this guy has. He's impeccably dressed. There's never a hair out of place. Has the right watch and the right everything. But he has cut a big hole in his shoe so that his bunion can stick out, but not the actual bunion. It's inside of a sock. I realize that I'm doing this podcast within about 2 feet of this massive bunion.
Hey, I change the socks every day so they don't stink.
I don't know what to say about it, but it's just I'm getting ready to go to lunch after this, and for some reason I keep thinking of what's on the other side of that sock.
Well, I could show you if you'd like.
No, I don't want to see it. Will Glaros has been an insurance guy for a long time, and then has done a number of other business-type ventures, and recently kind of merged with a multinational company and is a huge success story. And what we try to talk about are some of those traits, some of those things that you could glean from his situation and apply it to your own life. Once again, we will remind you what Limbwalkers means, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's right behind us. And I'll just read it. If one never ventures out on the limb, one will never taste the fruit. And there's a picture of Will Glaros, impeccably dressed, like he always is, on a limb away from the trunk where you could easily fall.
Yep.
That's the whole idea, right?
It is. It's to give people an opportunity to kind of think about where they are in their life and how far away from the core that they started at they ventured, and taken the opportunity to step and take some risk. And sometimes it's not even a risk. It's just a decision to do something different where there's no risk involved. It's just a matter of trying something new. And people are afraid of that. And I understand. I mean, it's when you go out and you try something new and you find out it isn't to your liking, people feel for some reason like they failed. And actually what they've done is they've learned a new lesson about where they can go without feeling pain. And sometimes they go and they feel pain. I've had plenty of pain. It isn't a lot of fun, but I will say that the pain I've suffered when I venture out on that limb has been well rewarded if you stick with it and it's something that really matters to you.
Talk about that more. We are in the venture capital world. Right. Now with our sports network, not necessarily with this podcast network and our radio stations, but I see a lot of failure. As a matter of fact, it's like 90% plus failure.
That do this?
That do the venture capitalists. They try to come up with a new idea, and they try to have a new product or service. They're working 14, 16 hours a day for no money, and then ultimately they just have to say kaputs, and that's 9 out of 10. And then you have all these people that are, and I see them at conferences, and I've been there. I've tried businesses and trades and all this stuff that did not work. I know failure, and I know being punched in. You feel literally like you've been punched in the face. You know what I mean?
You do.
You feel like you've been punched in the face. Perhaps this episode we can talk a little bit about getting punched in the face and how you pick yourself off the floor.
Well, I think first of all, you need to kind of take two-step look at that. One is the failure you suffer when you're looking for if you're looking for venture capital to do your operation. I have never done that. Mine has always been venturing my own capital out there. So it was my full loss. It wasn't losing for someone else. So I could go maybe a step further or freeze up where I was because of financial restrictions. Where when you're dealing with a venture capitalist, you're now answering to a second owner in that business, and you have obligations to them. I would find that more difficult. I've never gone to other people to ask them for money for a venture I wanted to do. I did it with what limited resources or extra resources that I had, and then you're really responsible to only one owner. And the thing is, when you make those steps and those decisions to go out on the limb, to try something new, it's even if you fail, you've learned something new that will help you either in recharging that effort again or going to a new one down the road. You'll learn something new that you realize is beneficial, such as when you first step out on that limb and you have losses and things don't go your way, you realize that nobody punched you in the stomach, nobody sat on your head, nobody yelled at you. It was your own self-analysis of what you had done. And you learned from it. You learned something new, so whether or not it's in a retry of that effort or a brand new effort, you learn that it's worth the effort just for the knowledge that you pick up to go forward.
You know, I like that. And as you guys well know, I traded in the pits of the Board of Trade, and you are constantly reminded of your own fallibility every couple of minutes. You buy something, oh, it doesn't work, you got to get out of it. I failed, that trade failed. After a while, you get pretty good at basically you should buy stuff and sell it, sell stuff and buy it if it's a little loss. And then the bigger stuff you just let run. That's basically good trading. But there's a limit. And I think, I lost all of my money twice on this. And I think what happens is that you're buying, it's not working, you're selling, buy, sell, and you're going back and forth, and then you try something, you go into a different market, you do all sorts of different things, and it's just not working. And then you start getting a bigger failure, and then you get to a point you're just like, I don't care anymore, I'm out, and who cares? Let's just let it all run away from. And that's a dangerous spot. I think I had to go through it twice to really understand what it was and how to combat the emotional, any sort of feelings you have ever had of self-doubt will come out in the pits of the Chicago Board of Trade. And they did. And I wasn't the only one. I knew most guys there lost all their money, especially in the beginning. But the emotional thing of what you're saying is that if you can come around to that, like say, hey, I did a trade, what's it teaching me about the market? Hey, I sold this one, I sold again, and I had to buy it back higher, I sold again. Well, maybe I should be buying now instead, okay? Yeah. And you can learn in that way, but it is not innate to fail and say, oh, I failed. That's so great. I got all this knowledge now.
Yeah, I can, a much smaller example because I've never been on the floor of the Board of Trade, but in my own trading most of my stuff I invest through outside people that know what they're doing. I really don't, but I like to play in the market. So I got involved in buying stocks that were all based on X dividend dates and then buy them right before the X date. And then as soon as that X date hit, even though it's a short-term game, when I get the dividend or the gain, if there is any gain, and there were a couple that gained quickly and got a dividend, because normally they drop after the payment of the dividend. And I was stringing along for about a year and a half, and then I bought one, and I bought a lot of it, and it paid a nice dividend, but it dropped enough that I lost 3 times what that dividend was. Now I had to decide, am I going to stay in and just gather dividends and hope this thing goes back up so I can break even? But what did I learn? I turned right around, and the next time when I got through that, I buy another kind of questionable one. And that doesn't scare me, but I don't like losing money. But it doesn't scare me because I figure it'll come back at some point. I mean, you just have to be willing to wait it out. And I was trying to do kill, 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 and then that's when you're getting greedy. And I think I finally learned by experience.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the trading world, and I'm saying it took me better part of a decade to really learn. No, actually, it took me 15 years to really understand how multiple failures in a day are part of what you have to do to get that. And I used to say learn or earn. Like a lot of times you go in there and you're trading back and forth. Sometimes the markets are dead. Sometimes the markets are just freaking rocking and you're not making any money. And you're like, man, how is this moving all around? All this trading going on. I'm not making anything. There are all different levels of failure. But it all comes back to one thing of what you're talking about now is like, well, what am I learning from this failure or from this, getting rocked and falling flat on my face? You know what I mean?
I'm going to tell you, you don't give yourself enough credit. Honestly, Jim, I sit back and I look at you and think of what you went through during the period you were in the market, okay? Now I come to where you are now. You ended the market period a success, correct?
As much as you could say so, yeah. I mean, when you lose all your money twice and you finally walk away with a little bit, with a decent amount of change, yes, that's a success. But sometimes you look back on it and you go, is it really a success if you put your family through all that?
Well, that's another analysis. Yeah, but I mean, for you personally, looking at your life, if this was whatever the name of that show was, This Is Your Life, I mean, look at where you are. You came through successfully. Now you're on the other side. You're in a new world. You're in basically media. And you've made this successful. So you got 2 wins in your life. And look at the number of people that you're helping. All the people that work here for you are being helped, and they're learning from what you're doing.
You're doing what you always would do in sales calls, which is turning it on the other person and showing how positive they are so that you can convert them into buying a policy.
Oh, yeah.
All right, now, I appreciate that. But here's the part I would like to, the picture behind us is you walking out on the limb. And we've gone through many things that you tried and it didn't work out, and how you made the decisions, and how you made the decision to go out on your own, how you made the decisions to go into new lines, how you made the decisions to hire people, how you made the decision to basically exit on your company and hand it to your kids and set them up and all that. We've gone through all that. But I think that when you're asking about me, I have congratulated you because you made me analyze personally, so what is my rhythm? And that was my rhythm, and that was that I struggled for 15 years in the board of trade, and then I just freaking killed it for a few years. And then I started to I put everything in my wife's name, and I go, when we get to I lose half, then we're out. And so I lost half of it, and she goes, we're done. I'm not giving you any more money to go back and trade. I go, well, thank you. I'm glad. Let's get out. So I went and bought some radio stations and a newspaper and that kind of stuff, and went into a different thing. And that has been an immense struggle again for about 15 to 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And then it starts to kick in a little bit, all right? So in those 15-year swaths honestly, I think partly this podcast has made me realize that that's where I want to be. I want to be in the struggle, partly because I think I know I'm addicted. I mean, I have an addictive personality, and it's safe there. Now all of a sudden you start making a bunch of money, and that's or having no money. They're the same to me. I get the same feeling. I got zero money or I got a ton of money. To me, it's the same. It's in a risk phase. I'm in a risky. As a matter of fact, there's less risk of having no money than having a ton of money. But I just wonder if people, when they look at their lives, wonder if they put that if you put yourself in a position that could be a lot easier if you would just let it, In other words, I think I put myself in difficult positions because I felt comfortable there. I'm guarding against addiction. I like risk. I get all of that. But after a while, if you've done it twice in your life, then maybe you got to look and say, hey, you know what? I don't have to, put myself out there.
I think you enjoy it.
I do.
You enjoy that part of it. And if it were easy, you wouldn't have any fun doing it. And you've got to, look at you. You play golf with one frickin' club and a putter. How many people do that and don't play any?
No putter.
Oh, you have no putter? That's right. You use with
the edge of the 7
So, my point exactly. You're a risk taker. You like it to be difficult. For some reason, you feel you need to suffer some pain when you're doing this.
So I guess my question of that, yes, you are right, and you've been, spot on with your analysis, and I never really thought about it until we started doing this podcast. But I guess what I'm saying is that the people that are listening, perhaps they put themselves in positions where it's going to be overly difficult, or sometimes I think people put themselves in a position where they're gonna fail, and they, it just confirms the doubts or the feelings or their self-image. Yeah. Do you ever run into that?
You mean myself feeling that way, or running into people?
Other people.
Yeah, I think so. There's so many different types of people, and each person handles each circumstance differently. Like I said, originally when I got into the insurance business, in fact, we were in Florida last week, my wife and I, we were in Hollywood Beach in that area, which is where the Diplomat Hotel is located. And we were taking an Uber back to the airport, and we're passing by the Diplomat, and I said to my wife and the Uber drivers up here, I said, you know what? That building is when our lives changed, the Diplomat. I happened to be there with Prudential Insurance Company, and they had a speaker by the name of Bob Proctor. And he talked about being in the wrong place with the right skills. And that's where I was in my career with Prudential. I was in the wrong place with them, with the skills to succeed, but not necessarily getting what I needed to make that happen, working for someone else. And I decided at that conference, when this Bob Proctor was speaking, I decided that's when I was going to leave. And part of it was I wasn't getting reward for what I was doing, which was going above and beyond the call of duty with my customers. And he had a demo piece called Newton's Cradle, which is the 5 pinballs hanging in a row. You've seen them on the platform. And you pull one back, and when you let it go, it hits the other 4, and 1 goes out. And if you pull 3 back and let it go, when it hits the 2, 3 go out, because under Newton's law, it is for every action there is an opposite and like reaction. And he said, in your life, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Well, I was putting in 4 balls, and I was getting 1 back in that location. So I decided to leave. You can be in the wrong place for the skills that you have. You can be in the right place for the skills that you have. And a lot of that is dependent upon the leadership in the position you're in, if you're working for someone else, and are you getting the right guidance to make it happen? If you're not, you need to find a new place to do it. And that's basically what I did when I really started my career in the insurance business, is when I quit Prudential and went out on my own. But it was all because of that event at the Diplomat Hotel in Hollywood, Florida.
So let's go at that one. We'll leave the multiple, or what do you get out of failures? I mean, think about failures in your own life, and Will's asking you to consider them learning opportunities. And believe me, I am right there with him, and I believe this entirely. And when something doesn't go wrong or we don't get a sale or something, I say, hey, let's analyze. Why didn't they buy? What happened? What could we have done differently? What is it about our product? Because we know that they would match up good. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been talking to them, but we weren't able to tell that story and blah, blah, blah. So everybody has those. But everybody goes in through their life, and they're not just brought into life and then all of a sudden you're 35 years old and you learned everything all on your own. You have to have looked for other resources, specifically for mentorship, for education. Now you can get a lot of stuff that you want, maybe in YouTube videos or in self-help books. But at some point, there has to be influences on your own thinking to drive you into areas, and you have to choose that. And, how do you get judicious in that?
First of all, finding the right thing. I think the most motivational thing I had in my career was being around people who had succeeded in different ways. As an example, and we've talked about this on prior programs, when I went to Dallas, Texas with the two people I didn't even know and went to the Zig Ziglar seminar, Born to Win, I learned things about myself and about other people that helped me expand my career at that point in time. When I had the opportunity, because after doing that, I decided I was going to try to bring as much positive information to Northwest Indiana for people to at least hear. Whether or not they act on it is up to them. I can't change people's actions. And one of the people I brought in fact, I've just noticed him on Instagram a lot. They're playing a lot about him. His name was Sergeant Roy Benavides, and he was a Vietnam veteran, Green Beret. I won't go into his whole story, but the bottom line is towards the end of his service period, he flew back into some Green Berets who were surrounded, from what I read recently, I didn't know it was this many, 1,000 North Vietnamese regulars. And these guys had been found out. They were there on a clandestine mission, and they were surrounded, and the guys were all somewhat shot in some way, and he flew in on a medevac. They dropped him down almost in the middle of where the North NVA was, and he made his way up fighting the entire way to the top of that hill, set a perimeter, doctored some of these guys, continued to fight the enemy until the copters came to get him out. And when they threw him into the copter, they threw him into a body bag because they thought he was dead. And when they got back to the base, they tossed the body bag out on the ground, and they heard, "Hoo!" And it was him. He was alive. They opened the thing up, and he looked like heck. But he survived. When you get around people like that, sometimes it's not even a study in getting better at your field. It's realizing anything is possible if you believe it. You just have to believe you can get it done and not let the doomsayers say, it's time to quit, don't go any further. Imagine if he had stopped fighting for those guys on that hill. 12 of the guys survived that event. There were, I don't remember, like 18 of them on this trip. But the things you learned, I haven't necessarily learned from other professionals in my business. I've learned from outside of my business, because what it really comes down to is your character, your tenacity, your stick-to-itness, and that's what you get from the experiences you've been through. You get that high from making it through to the end. When you were at the bottom of the rung, you were just like Benavides, flying into a hellhole, and you're at the bottom, and now you got to recover, and you do it. And you've done it a couple times. That's what I enjoyed, being with people like Ziegler and with Benavides, with a Vietnam POW that was one of the last. What the heck was his name? Oh, God. We brought him in with Robert Schuller, the TV evangelist, and also Joe Theismann. And you hear Theismann tell the story of breaking his leg when it was basically turned backwards. Did he quit? Hell no, he didn't quit. Am I going to quit? Heck no, I'm not going to quit. It's what you get. That's why I try, even if it's a loss financially, I want to be around people who have been through things that I can learn from. And then we can all do that.
So I guess the theme today is, one, you're going to fail, and how are you going to look at it? It takes a long time and a lot of coaching to get to a point where you can realize that the failure is just a learning opportunity, and that's
Yep.
it. It's a learning opportunity about the market. It's a learning opportunity about your business, your family. It's a learning opportunity about how you do that emotionally and psychologically. The other theme is, what do you put into your mind, and what kind of inputs, kind of mentorship, what kind of messaging, what kind of motivation do you put in there and seek out and look for? Because that is very important. I mean, obviously, we've talked about it. Now, I'm with you. I've had a few mentors, my parents, John Friend, a football
for
coach,
sure.
certainly a big influence on both of our lives, and we kind of share that. We've never done an episode on his teachings, and maybe we should, but I've never had like that one person who guided me through. I don't think I would have ever listened to anybody. I would have rebelled, blah, blah, blah. But it never really appeared anyways.
Yeah.
Some people will say, oh, my mentor. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. But I'm just, I listen to this guy, I listen to this woman, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, it's up to you what you put into your head.
It is. I mean, I'm telling you now, I didn't know who this guy was. I ran into one of his books, a guy by the name of Ryan Holiday. He is one of the country's largest speakers on Stoicism and writers. And he's got like 7 books that he's written. And I'm finishing, I think, the 6th one right now. And I haven't had a blank day. I haven't read a day of his programs. What I like best is being with attention deficit. The chapters are about 4 pages at the max, and I like that because I can get the thought process, and he really makes you think. If Stoicism is basically at its lowest level of explanation, if I can change it, I'm going to change it or try to make it better. If I can't, to heck with it. I'm not going to let it kill me. If I can't change it, sometimes just being part of it, you learn something, an issue that comes up, and you make your way through it, but you don't succeed. There's no win out of it, but you've learned something from it. That's okay. But it's learning to know when to say, this isn't worth my time, and this I want to focus on, because it can have value in my life, and this one, I'm never going to understand it.
That turning point there is tough, because sometimes it is people you've invested in, and you're like, I don't want that, or I just don't necessarily want to hang out with them, or whatever it might be. But sometimes you're not just turning yourself on a task; you're turning yourself on people that you might say, I'm just kind of done with this.
Sometimes you have to do that.
Why?
If it isn't, I am certainly, my wife would tell you this, I'm certainly one who has probably too long a cord before I cut, because I always believe the best in everybody, that they're going to come through. There's something good in there. The reason they do the things they do that I don't like, there's obviously some events in their life that have caused them to have that characteristic. And I'm not going to blow them up because they have it. But there have been times when I reach a point where somebody they're just not right match, and I have to break it. And no, it's not easy, but sometimes you have to cut the line in order to continue to grow.
He is Will Glaros. This is the Limbwalkers podcast. He had a whole list of things that we could talk about, and I'm like, why don't we just kind of freeform it? And I like that the most. But the Limbwalker Creed, if you really want to get down to it, I am special and unique. We'll define a vision and plan. I'll be self-disciplined. I'll have a positive mental attitude. Work hard. Go the extra mile. Look for the best in everyone. We covered that just now. Learn from every adversity and defeat. We covered that in a roundabout way. Help others to grow. And then the one that is always the most difficult, especially as you get older, is I will honor time. Let's not go into any more of them because we've covered enough, and this is just long enough for you to listen to.
Well, the time thing is really meaningful. Let's not talk about it today. Let's do it in the next podcast. But it's kind of a unique approach that I learned and became educated on it by someone that you would probably never imagine was an educator of that concept and the way it's delivered, what it really means.
Is that a concept you came to as you got older?
And it was a concept I learned to appreciate when I heard it put in a certain way.
All right, we'll do that on the next podcast. This is Limbwalkers. Go to Apple, Spotify. You can even watch us on YouTube if you want to see how well this guy dresses every time. Until next time, we'll see you.
Except for the hole in the shoe.
Except for the hole in the shoe. Hey, until next time, we'll see you later. Thanks a lot to Lyneth Lopez for producing this podcast and for Adriana Alvarez for putting it together and posting it everywhere. Until next time.
You guys are great.
Yes. Well, until next time, we'll see you later.